House Report number 113-131, offered by Mr. DeFazio of Oregon.
Pursuant to House Resolution 274, the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. DeFazio, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this amendment is to remove from the bill provisions that would mandate leasing off of the fabulous Bristol Bay area of Alaska. Now, this is, I said this bill was a little bit like Groundhog Day because we have passed it before. We talked about that yesterday. But this is about a bizarre version of Groundhog Day that I'm forced to offer this amendment. Actually, after the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and I traveled up to the spill with then Subcommittee Chairman George Miller and saw what an extraordinary mess had been created, something that in those cold waters is very, very difficult to deal with and very, very persistent. It caused tremendous damage to the fisheries. The Congress chose in 1989 under President George H.W. Bush to revoke the leases in the Bristol Bay area in order to protect this $2 billion a year fishery. And in fact, the American people, the taxpayers of the United States of America, paid $100 million to buy back those leases that had been sold in the 1980s. That moratorium remained in place until then President George W. Bush lifted the moratorium. Now the Obama administration has done the right thing and reversed George W. Bush's decision and excluded Bristol Bay from drilling in the 2012-2017 OCS leasing program. So we had the first President Bush agree that a moratorium, in fact, a permanent protection of that area was warranted because of the $2 billion a year renewable fishery and other precious resources, the cold water, the difficult conditions. George W. Bush reversing that, and then President Obama reinstating a moratorium. Now this bill would mandate leasing off of Bristol Bay. There's strong public opposition. I mean, obviously, there's always division over these issues, but there is strong public opposition to drilling in Bristol Bay. 55 tribes, Native Alaska associations, and fishing organizations are opposed to the drilling in that area. National environmental groups like Trout Unlimited, Wild Salmon Center, Natural Resources Defense Council also support this amendment. This is a precious and irreplaceable area. One major spill in that area would devastate the environment, the fishery that supports thousands of jobs in Alaska, and actually jobs all up and down the west coast of the United States are dependent upon the fabulous fishery of Bristol Bay, both the commercial and the sport fishing. I have guides in Oregon who spend their summers in Alaska guiding in the Bristol Bay area. It attracts people from around the world. We should not put this extraordinary resource at risk in this bill for some possible potential future oil revenues in a state which is already quite rich in oil, where the former Naval Petroleum Reserve has been leased, but as in the case of many leases that the oil industry holds, not developed, even though there are known resources. That was why it was the Naval Petroleum Reserve. There are known and large resources under that part of the area of Alaska. So this is something that, the balance is clearly in favor of protecting this area, not another area to drill, given the resources already available in Alaska. Now, I had to do a so-called pay-for. We passed last night the Cassidy Amendment, which increases the federal deficit by $15 billion, $14,999,999,970 over 30 years, by lifting the cap on revenue sharing with the Gulf states. That's costing they say $1 less than $500 million a year. So, but that didn't have to be paid for. They waived the rules. But because I want to protect this fabulous resource, they're saying, well, you're foregoing potential possible future revenues for the government, you must pay for it. So unfortunately, given that, I had to move to strike Title III so we could protect this resource. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time's expired. What purpose does the gentleman from Washington seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to claim time in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman from Washington.